Hello everyone. Today, I bring you a sci-fi thriller masterfully crafted by the creators of Dark. The story occurred in 1899 when a steamship called Prometheus with 1,423 passengers mysteriously disappeared in June. Despite a 4-month search by officials, no trace of the ship was found. The main character, Mora, had a brother on Prometheus. One day, she received a letter from him asking her to meet him in New York. Determined to find out the truth, Mora, who lived in the UK, boarded the Kerberos steamship heading to New York. This ship belonged to the same company as the vanished Prometheus and was similar in size, making passengers uneasy, fearing the same fate. On the third day of the journey, Captain Ike received a strange telegram with repeating coordinates. After checking the map, he realized it was a 7-hour trip to the location. Suspecting the telegram might be from Prometheus, he decided to change course to investigate. Though his crew hesitated, they followed his orders. Later, Captain Ike returned to his office, looking sadly at his family photo, revealing his troubled past. Mora then knocked on his door, having overheard the telegram on deck. Excited that it might be from Prometheus, she sought more information. Although Captain Ike hesitated to tell her everything, he promised to inform all the passengers soon. Captain Ike later addressed everyone in the dining hall, announcing his decision to change course. Most passengers opposed this plan, as they did not want their journey delayed for an unverified telegram. Without offering more explanation, Captain Ike confirmed the decision. On deck, Mora wondered if survivors from Prometheus might still be alive after 4 months. Captain Ike shared his thoughts, saying that while humans had explored much of the world, the sea remained mysterious. Suddenly, a shout interrupted them. Prometheus, missing for months, was spotted drifting nearby. However, there were no signs of life, despite several flares being sent. This raised the question, who sent the telegram? The deputy suggested reporting to the company first, but Captain Ike, strangely obsessed with the missing ship, insisted on exploring it. Mora volunteered to help, thinking she might be helpful as a doctor. All the passengers gathered, whispering as they watched Captain Ike row toward Prometheus. A nervous priest prayed quietly. As they approached, Prometheus loomed large like a threatening beast. Captain Ike left 2 crew members to guard the small ship, then led the team up the stairs of Prometheus. When they lit lanterns on the deck, they were shocked by what they saw. No one could have imagined that the once luxurious Prometheus had fallen into such ruin in just 4 months. What puzzled them more was the fate of the 1,400 passengers. There wasn't a single body. Captain Ike found a hair tie on the ground and, looking surprised, secretly pocketed it. The group entered the control room, which was also a mess. The telegraph machine was broken. How were the previous signals sent? Meanwhile, on Kerberos, the deputy got a report that the telegrams had stopped, meaning someone on Prometheus had sent them. However, they didn't notice a wet man boarding on their deck, who seemed to have swum from Prometheus. On Prometheus, while searching for survivors, Captain Ike and his crew made a discovery. They saw a colorful beetle crawl into a cabinet. Suddenly, a loud noise came from inside. Captain Ike drew his gun, and Mora carefully opened the cabinet. To their surprise, they found a little boy staring blankly inside. He showed no emotion, but pulled out a triangular stone and handed it to Mora. At the same time, the mysterious man who had come aboard Prometheus found an empty room. He pulled out a beetle, like the one Mora had seen, and slipped it into a door gap. Moments later, the door opened on its own. The next day, Captain Ike and his crew returned to their ship. Besides the boy, they found no one else, no bodies at all. Mora asked the boy many questions, but he stayed silent, offering the stone again. Frustrated, Mora patted his head and noticed a triangular mark on his neck. The boy suddenly grabbed her arm tightly. Then, there was a loud knock on the door. Captain Ike, looking frantic, grabbed the boy and demanded answers about what happened to Prometheus. Mora stopped him, afraid he might scare the child. Later, Captain Ike shared his strange experience. Since leaving Prometheus, he had dreamt of his wife and daughters burning in a fire. When he woke up, he held the hair tie he had found on the ship, which had belonged to his eldest daughter. But how did it get on Prometheus? Soon, the deputy knocked on the door, informing them that the company had sent a new telegram. It instructed Captain Ike to sink Prometheus. They went to the control room and saw all the compasses spinning wildly, and the navigational instruments had stopped working. It was clear that Prometheus was hiding a huge secret. Passengers began to speculate, believing a demon cursed their ship. But Captain Ike had more profound concerns. Months earlier, the company had sold all its ships to a British firm. Now, Kerberos, like Prometheus, carried no cargo and wasn't fully booked. Why would the company choose such a financially pointless route? Captain Ike was troubled by many doubts and strongly resisted the company's orders to sink Prometheus. Suddenly, he heard a familiar song and followed the sound outside his room. He saw a figure flash by and realized the singing was coming from a nearby room. He quickly entered, but the song stopped. To his shock, the room looked exactly like his home. Inside, his deceased wife and daughters were sitting by the stove. His wife, acting normally, went to prepare dinner. His eldest daughter approached him, urging him to spend less time at sea because strange shadows had been appearing at home. Captain Ike clung to his daughter, tearfully refusing to let go. Suddenly, flames erupted from her body, forcing Captain Ike back. When he looked again, the room was burned, and a colorful beetle lay on the ground. Captain Ike followed the beetle into the fireplace and found a ladder leading upward. Climbing it, he was back in his office on the ship. He saw a strange triangular symbol carved into the wood. The experience felt so real that Captain Ike broke down, believing Prometheus was responsible. The boy they had rescued still refused to say anything. Captain Ike looked for the secret passage he had just exited, now sealed with bricks. A knock interrupted him, and Captain Ike had to stop his search. Crew member Ulick reported that only half of the coal remained, barely enough to reach New York. Soon after, Captain Ike gathered all the passengers and announced a significant decision. He planned to turn back, towing Prometheus to their starting point because there wasn't enough coal to bring both ships to New York. The passengers strongly protested, but Captain Ike ignored them. Mara quickly followed Captain Ike to the deck, where he explained his decision. He felt something was wrong with Prometheus, and the company was trying to hide the truth. Before leaving, he had received a mysterious letter with a photo of his deceased family and news about Prometheus's disappearance. The envelope had a message that read, "What is lost will be found." Captain Ike thought his family's death was linked to the ship, especially since he found his daughter's hairband on Prometheus. Determined, he decided to tow the steamship back for further investigation. As night fell, Prometheus, missing for 4 months, began its return journey. However, strange things continued. The telegraph received signals with strange triangular markings, like the triangular pyramid of the boy. Mora's necklace pendant also had a triangular symbol. Later, the crew found a girl's body on the deck. Her eyes were wide open. After the doctor examined her, they found no wounds and believed she died of illness. But Mora disagreed. She had seen the girl alive and well earlier. Captain Ike also found the death suspicious and told his crew not to inform the family yet. Suddenly, the ship started slowing down. Thick white fog rose from the sea, and the crew had to stop the ship. The strange events made the crew blame Captain Ike for bringing Prometheus on board. Captain Ike himself also felt something was wrong. He took Mora to his office and showed her the ribbon he found on Prometheus, which had belonged to his daughter. He also showed her a hidden compartment in the office, marked with the same triangular symbol, convincing Mora that something was truly wrong. Both agreed that Prometheus was the source of the strange occurrences and decided to investigate it again. Now covered in thick fog, Prometheus looked even more eerie. They first visited the control room and found the logbook damaged and old. They discovered another hidden passage in the captain's cabin with a triangular symbol, just like the others. Captain Ike then remembered that the cruise ships had been sold to a British businessman months ago. He had upgraded the ships and likely added the secret compartments, but the reason remained unclear. He also recalled that the buyer had installed a steam gauge on the vessel, though it had never been used, suggesting it served a different purpose. Looking at the high-temperature furnace connected to the gauge, Mora had a bold idea. Could the missing passengers have been turned to ash in the stove? They quickly opened it to check for ashes, but found no signs of human remains. Instead, Captain Ike found several partially burned papers. They were passenger lists from Prometheus, and to his shock, Mora's name was on the list. Ike turned pale and looked at Mora suspiciously before stuffing the list into his pocket. They then rowed back to their ship, unaware of the changes happening during their absence. In economy class, the passengers didn't know about the missing girl's death, but her absence made them anxious. At this time, Franz, the security chief, went against Captain Ike's orders and announced the girl's death to everyone. The passengers' moods quickly shifted. Seeing the body, their worry turned to anger. These passengers were already treated poorly, stuck in dark cabins without sunlight, and separated from the VIP areas by iron gates. With the mysterious death of the girl, their resentment grew stronger, which was exactly what Franz wanted. After leaving the area, Franz found 3 dead crew members with no visible injuries, just like the girl. He suspected something from Prometheus was responsible and believed the ship needed to be sunk immediately. Franz tried to convince the deputy to join him against Captain Ike, but the deputy refused and walked away. Left with no choice, Franz returned to economy class and revealed the deaths to the passengers, blaming Captain Ike for everything. The lower-class passengers, already angry about the girl's death, became furious. Franz used the moment to open the armory and handed out weapons. As the passengers prepared to confront Captain Ike, Oleg, a coal worker loyal to the captain, felt uneasy. He had explored Prometheus with Ike the night before and wanted to warn him about the uprising. However, Franz noticed Oleg's plan and had him overpowered by the angry crowd. They locked him in a small, dark room. Unexpectedly, Jerome, who had explored Prometheus with them the night before, was also in the dark room. He wasn't part of the crew, but a stowaway. After Franz found out, he beat Jerome and locked him up. The priest from the luxury cabin, who had also been on Prometheus, learned that the lower-class passengers planned to harm Captain Ike. He rushed to warn him, but it was too late. The passengers quickly captured both the priest and Captain Ike. Everyone who had explored Prometheus was locked in the dark room. Suddenly, the mysterious man who had sneaked in from Prometheus took out a strange keyboard. He caused the entire cruise ship to vanish from the sea. Although the passengers felt nothing weird, the sailors in the control room noticed that the steering had returned to normal. However, the ship was now back to its position from 3 days ago, and Prometheus, which was connected by a chain, had disappeared. However, Franz only focused on getting the ship to New York and stopping the mysterious deaths. Franz opened the dark room and pulled out Oleg and Jerome. When they reached the deck, they were shocked by how many people had died in just one day. Franz ordered them to throw the bodies into the sea. Under the threat of guns, they complied. Panic spread among the passengers, and the guards forced them back to their rooms to keep them inside. But the strange deaths didn't stop. The armed lower-class passengers, unable to bear it any longer, confronted the deputy, demanding answers. The deputy revealed that the company had once ordered the sinking of Prometheus, believing something terrible was there. The strange events might be related to the only survivor, the boy from Prometheus. Convinced by this explanation, the passengers armed themselves and headed to find the boy. In the corridor, they ran into Maura, who was returning to her room. Knowing the boy was in her room, they forced her at gunpoint to open the door. After searching the room, they found no sign of the boy. They left frustrated, locking Maura inside. Alone, Maura was confused. The boy had been in the room, but where did he go? Then she heard a noise under the bed. She pushed the bed aside and saw the familiar triangular symbol. There was a hidden passage beneath the floor. Maura found the boy hiding there. She was filled with questions. Why was this triangular symbol in her room? What was happening? But the boy remained silent. Maura decided to leave and find Captain Ike. When she struggled to open the door, the boy pulled out a colorful beetle. The beetle crawled through the gap, and the door suddenly opened. Maura was shocked, but the boy did not explain. He grabbed her hand and led her down the hallway, avoiding the guards. Maura wanted to ask how he was doing this, but decided against it. After Jerome and Oleg finished disposing of the bodies, they took advantage of the guards' distraction and climbed over the railing. Jerome successfully escaped the deck. While chased, he knocked on random doors in the luxury cabin hallway. Someone finally opened a door and helped him hide from the guards. Worried about Captain Ike, Jerome decided to rescue him. The woman who helped him hesitated, but decided to join him. Meanwhile, Oleg, who couldn't escape, was locked back in the dark room by Franz. However, Captain Ike had already escaped through the ventilation ducts with the priest. As they tried to remove their handcuffs, Jerome and the woman arrived to rescue them. They didn't know that Prometheus had disappeared and planned to take a lifeboat to send a distress signal. Just as they were about to leave, they ran into Maura and the boy. Before they could talk, Franz and his men arrived, forcing them to surrender. That evening, the lower-class passengers, terrified by the mysterious deaths, decided to throw the boy into the sea to get rid of the threat. Captain Ike and Jerome tried to stop them, but they were outnumbered. They could only watch helplessly as the boy was pushed into the sea. Maura felt as if she had lost something precious, but couldn't remember her connection to the boy. Later, Captain Ike and the passengers gathered in the banquet hall to regroup. Suddenly, they heard noise from a cabinet. Something familiar to Maura. Under everyone's gaze, the cabinet door opened, and the boy, who had been thrown into the sea, walked out. Everyone was shocked, and the room fell silent. Once they recovered, they locked the boy back into the cabinet. Maura strongly disagreed, but even Captain Ike thought the boy brought bad luck. Maura followed her instincts and tried to save the boy, ignoring the guns pointed at her. As the situation became tense, the mysterious man from Prometheus rushed in to protect Maura. Suddenly, a bullet was fired, but the scene froze as if time had stopped. Only Maura was able to move. She grabbed the bullet, which was suspended in midair. It took her a moment to realize the boy was still in the cabinet. She guessed the boy was responsible for freezing time, but he remained silent and quickly pulled Maura away from the banquet hall. Soon, the stillness ended, but by then, Maura and the boy had mysteriously vanished, causing fear to rise among everyone. Suddenly, an alarm sounded on the ship, making the passengers nervous and wondering what strange event would happen next. Captain Ike was nearly driven mad. He believed Maura had a huge secret, and the mysterious man who protected her must be deeply connected to her. Other passengers tried to calm him, saying they needed to leave the ship as soon as possible, but Captain Ike was powerless. The security chief Franz had taken control of the steamship the day before and ordered full-speed sailing, quickly using up the coal supply. The passengers decided to take control of the ship. Suddenly, the alarm stopped, and a clock-ticking sound, like a clock, began. Everyone froze in confusion since they had never heard this sound before. Soon, some passengers appeared dazed and started walking in one direction. Even those in their rooms slowly walked outside. A few passengers who weren't affected stood frozen in fear. Franz tried to stop the group, but it was useless. They walked together to the deck and without hesitation began jumping over the railing into the sea. More and more passengers followed, jumping into the sea in large groups. The unaffected passengers tried to stop them, but couldn't. The controlled passengers, as if drawn to death, fearlessly plunged into the water. Fearing they might soon be affected, the remaining survivors tied themselves up in their rooms. This method prevented them from untying the ropes even if they lost control. Meanwhile, the deputy watched this strange scene without showing any surprise, as if he had expected it. He quickly entered a code into a control box, like he was sending a message. Then, he went to the control room, where the helmsman sat trembling in a corner. Seeing the deputy, the helmsman handed him a piece of paper. The company had responded to his telegraph report about the passengers jumping overboard. The message said, "Sink the ship." The deputy read it without emotion, then pulled out a keyboard like the one used by the mysterious man. He pressed a button, and the helmsman collapsed instantly. It seemed clear that the deputy was one of the masterminds behind the strange events. In the hallway, Maura sensed something was wrong. She pulled the boy to stop and asked him to explain what was happening. He stayed silent and led her back to her room, writing on a note, "They are listening." This only confused Maura more. The boy whispered,
"Can't tell you."
Then, he moved the wooden bed to reveal a hidden passage. Curious, Maura watched as the boy crawled through it and used the colorful beetle to open a sealed passage. Maura followed him and found herself in a wilderness. She was too shocked to think about why she wasn't at sea anymore. The place was familiar, as she had seen it in her dreams many times. She spotted a large building in the distance and ran toward it. Meanwhile, the mysterious man on the ship sensed Maura's disappearance. He went to her room, saw the open passage, and crawled through it. He reopened the sealed exit using his strange keyboard and soon arrived in the same wilderness. He saw the boy and hurried over, revealing that they knew each other and were avoiding someone. The man mentioned that they needed to stop everything before the ship was sunk, and he told the boy not to get caught. Clearly, they were against the deputy and knew the truth about the ship. The mysterious man returned to the ship's cabin, which had a steam monitor controlling the ship. He was about to make changes when a coal worker appeared, unaffected by the ticking sound on the ship. With no time to explain, the mysterious man urged the worker to leave, but the worker grew suspicious and swung a shovel at him, believing the man had brought bad luck. Angry, the mysterious man pressed his keyboard, and the coal worker collapsed dead, just like the helmsman. Maura reached the large building in the wilderness and realized it was a mental hospital. She walked inside with a complex expression and went straight to room 111, which had a restraint chair. She had seen all of this in her dreams. Suddenly, her biological father appeared behind her. Mora asked where her brother was, realizing her father was behind everything happening on the ship. Before she could get an answer, two men appeared, strapped her to the chair, and injected her with something. When she woke up, she was back on the ship. The marks on her wrists proved it wasn't a dream. She ran into Captain Ike in the hallway and explained what she had discovered. Time had stopped because of the boy's powers with the triangular pyramid. Mora's repeated dreams were real events, but her father had erased her memories of them. When Mara mentioned her father's name, Captain Ike realized he was the owner of the company that bought the cruise ships. Mara explained that her father had spent his life studying human behavior and exploring the brain, not ships. She believed her father was using the passengers for a research experiment. As they talked, a colorful beetle appeared, and Mara quickly caught it. She crawled into the secret passage, placed the beetle on the ground as the boy had shown her, and the passage opened again. This time, they didn't end up in the wilderness. Captain Ike recognized the place. They were at his home. Ike stayed rational, knowing a ship couldn't hold such a large building. They returned to the captain's cabin, confused. Mora believed her father had created all these strange events, but she felt she had once known the truth and just lost the memory. Seeing Mora's honesty, Captain Ike decided not to hide anything. He pulled out the passenger list from Prometheus. Not only was Mora's name on it, but Captain Ike's name was there too. He might have been Prometheus's captain. As they were in shock, the mysterious man in the cabin cut off the ship's power. The strange noises stopped, and the passengers who had lost consciousness woke up. Those who had tied themselves up were relieved to have escaped disaster. Afterward, the remaining passengers gathered on the deck. Out of the 1,400 passengers, only a few had survived. At that moment, the deputy showed everyone a telegram from the company. It said, "Sink the ship." This confused them because Prometheus was already gone. The mysterious man explained that the company wanted to sink their current ship. The scene then shifted to Mora's father in his study, receiving the telegram. He ordered his subordinates to tell the deputy to hurry and find the little boy. Meanwhile, Tove was on the verge of breaking down, blaming all the misfortunes on the little boy and resenting Mora for being close to him. Captain Ike stepped in and said the priority was to restore the ship's power so they could reach land. He ordered Franz and Oleg to lead the others in stoking the coal-fired engine. The rest of the passengers were assigned other tasks. As everyone stepped out of their rooms, they saw black crystals growing in the corridor. They knew these had just appeared. Someone tried to touch one, but was stopped by the mysterious man, warning them not to touch anything carelessly. Watching the crystals grow, everyone was filled with fear and only thought about escaping the ship. They rushed to the engine room and shoveled coal like professionals, trying to escape faster. Meanwhile, the remaining women searched the corridors for other survivors. They noticed the black crystals spreading to more places. One woman touched a crystal, and her fingers turned black instantly. Her curiosity had a fatal cost. The deputy, along with two priests, went to the control room to send a distress telegram, even though he knew it wouldn't help. Afterward, he went to the dining hall and found a secret passage in a cabinet. This was the same passage the boy had used earlier. The deputy used it to reach his boss and reported that the situation was getting out of control. But Mora's father only cared about finding the boy, as the pyramid he held was crucial. Meanwhile, Captain Ike and Mora were desperately searching for the missing boy, knowing he was key to solving everything. They followed a secret passage and returned to Mora's memory space. Mora remembered her father had built the mental hospital, which might hold clues. They went back to room 1011, where Mara had once been held as a patient, but the room was now empty. Captain Ike kept calm and checked the window, finding it sealed with metal, like the ship's outer hull. Mara opened the fireplace and saw the same thing, realizing the building wasn't real and was likely part of the ship. They searched the house, but found nothing unusual. When they returned to the hallway, they saw more black crystals growing. Mora tried to touch one, but the mysterious man appeared and stopped her. Both suspected he worked for Mora's father, but the man looked anxious and insisted time was running out. He pleaded with Mora to recover her memory quickly. Ignoring everything else, Captain Ike threatened the mysterious man with a gun, but the man quickly knocked it away. He pressed the control keyboard, and Captain Ike vanished, finding himself near his own home. Mora picked up the gun and demanded answers. The mysterious man introduced himself as Daniel, claiming to be Mora's husband of 12 years. This shocked Mora, who couldn't believe it and thought Daniel was just working for her father. She took the control keyboard and locked Daniel in the room. Maura, on the verge of a breakdown, couldn't understand why her father was against her. In frustration, she threw the gun, accidentally causing a crack in the air. To her surprise, she realized the scenery was virtual, a glass construct creating a fake space. Meanwhile, after an hour of hard work, the coal workers managed to restore power to the ship. However, in the control room, the priests were confused because the deputy hadn't returned. They didn't know how to steer the ship. The older priest looked at the manual, but was horrified to see that every book on the shelf repeated the same phrase, "May your coffee kick in before reality does." The priests exchanged puzzled glances, unsure of its meaning. The women searching for survivors found none and went to the deck, where they saw dark clouds gathering, an approaching storm. Captain Ike, after being thrown into the memory space, returned through a secret passage, only to find himself aboard Prometheus, surrounded by derelict ships. Maura also returned from her memory space to the Kerberos. Seeing the storm, she remembered Daniel's words about running out of time. Was he referring to the storm? In the control room, panic set in as Captain Ike and the deputy were missing, and no one could steer the ship. The storm threatened to swallow them. They split up to find someone who could navigate. One woman stood still, terrified. She had touched a black crystal, and now her palm had turned black. Soon, she met Maura. Desperate for answers, the woman clung to Maura, asking what was happening. Maura, equally confused, tried to reassure her before leaving the control room to continue her search. Maura was worried about Captain Ike's safety and knew she needed his help to solve the mystery. She used the secret passage to enter Captain Ike's memory space, but couldn't find him. Unable to locate him, she decided to explore Daniel's memory space for clues. When she arrived, she saw a photo of herself at the entrance, which made her uneasy. She quickly entered and found more photos on a nightstand. The pictures showed her, Daniel, and the little boy as a happy family. Maura began to wonder if they were really a family. Maura regretted locking Daniel in the mental hospital. Meanwhile, Daniel wasn't idle. He found a metal pipe in his room and pried open the ship's hull, revealing tangled wires. The small space was just ample enough to crawl through. Daniel moved forward in the darkness until he reached a round metal door. Opening it, he saw an area with a dry well, which was likely the priest's memory space. Indeed, all the memory spaces were connected. Daniel quickly returned to the ship's corridor and found another door, this time leading to a snowy landscape with a trail of blood, which was Alek's memory space. Knowing where to go, Daniel found a hidden door and finally reached Maura's memory space. He went to a cross and uncovered a crypt where he found the little boy hiding. The boy asked if Daniel had found the key. Daniel shook his head and said only Maura knew where it was, but her memory hadn't returned. He promised his son that he had a different plan to save her, even without the key. Before Daniel left, the boy gave him Maura's wedding ring. Meanwhile, the deputy was searching for the boy. He entered an office and pulled out a hidden tablet that controlled the ship. The tablet was more advanced than the strange keyboards and could monitor everything happening on the ship. It didn't take him long to find the boy's location. Daniel returned to the ship and entered his room, where he found the open secret passage. He followed it to his memory space and found Maura, who was still confused. Daniel then revealed the truth to her. Everything on the ship was a data simulation, and Maura was trapped in an endless loop. Daniel and the boy had come from Prometheus to find the key Maura had forgotten. With the key, they could use the pyramid to shut down the simulation and free Maura. Although Maura hadn't recovered her memory, she remembered that her pendant had hidden a small key. Her brother had sent it to her with a letter. Daniel reminded her that the key was crucial for their escape. At the moment, Maura's father was watching them through surveillance. He kept glancing at a timer on his desk, which showed 21 minutes left until the program shut down. As the storm raged, the ship was tossed around by the waves. In 21 minutes, unless something changed, the ship would be destroyed, and Maura would be forced into another cycle. The massive ship was helpless against the storm, rising and falling with the waves. The passengers were terrified because Captain Ike was missing, and no one was left to steer the ship. Security Chief Franz took charge. He told Alek, the coal worker, to take the helm and keep the ship pointed into the waves to avoid capsizing. Alek reached the control room and struggled to steer the heavy ship. He managed to adjust the direction, preventing it from capsizing. Just as he relaxed, a woman in a red dress thought she heard her deceased mother's voice and ran to the deck, believing she saw her mother waving. Oleg yelled for her to stop, making her realize it was a hallucination. He tried to bring her back, but a huge wave crashed over the ship, sweeping Oleg into the sea. With Oleg gone, the ship began to drift uncontrollably. In the engine room, a steel frame holding the coal collapsed, crushing one of the workers to death. The ship was in greater danger without power as seawater flooded the lower cabins. Franz realized he had to close the hatch doors or the ship would sink. When he reached the last door, he found the handle had broken. Determined, he pushed Tove into the compartment and closed the door from the outside, using all his strength to seal it shut. Tove's mother, devastated by strange events and the loss of her son, gave up on escaping. The old priest, who had known her for a long time, tried to convince her otherwise, but eventually chose to stay with her, facing death together. As the seawater filled the compartment, they both died. Franz also sacrificed himself, closing the hatch to save the others. But this was only temporary. With 21 minutes left before the loop restarted, the other passengers were destined to die from various accidents again. Fortunately, Maura figured everything out and obtained the key to break the simulation loop. She just needed to insert the key into the little boy's pyramid to end the program. Her husband, Daniel, was overjoyed and led Maura to an office, where he retrieved the master controller hidden in a cabinet. The screen showed only 11 minutes left until the reset. Each cycle lasted 8 days, and when the simulation restarted, Maura's memory would be wiped clean again. But this time, they were closer to success than ever. Daniel insisted on saving their progress before heading to Maura's memory space to retrieve the boy's pyramid. When they entered the room, they found the secret passage sealed. The deputy had already found the little boy and taken him to Maura's father. Just as Maura was about to face another restart, smug laughter echoed in the room. He praised Daniel for regaining access through Prometheus, but said it had failed. He told Maura to hand over the key, promising to protect the boy. Daniel, determined to change the outcome, secretly gave Maura the ring the little boy had given him. The countdown began, and as it reached 3, 2, 1, the survivors on the ship witnessed a terrifying scene. A massive whirlpool formed in the sea, and the ship was drawn toward it. To the survivors, it seemed like a symbol of rebirth or a deep abyss. Meanwhile, Captain Ike, who had awakened on Prometheus, rushed to the deck and saw the whirlpool and the cruise ship emerging from it. He spotted the survivors, including Maura, on the opposite deck. Their eyes met, filled with shock. It became clear that the discarded ships gathered in the same place after every simulation cycle. Curious, Captain Ike swam to Maura's ship. Maura shared everything she knew. However, the others had difficulty believing they were in a simulation. Seeing their doubt, Maura asked, "Do you remember how you boarded this ship?" Everyone's faces changed as they realized they couldn't remember, as if they were always meant to be on the ship. Maura pulled out a letter, revealing that she and everyone else had received similar letters linking their painful pasts to Prometheus. She decided the only way to escape was to find her father. However, most of the group, having suffered the loss of loved ones, didn't trust Maura, the daughter of the man behind it all, and chose to leave the ship by lifeboat. Maura warned them that the waters might be fake and they couldn't escape, but they tried anyway. Only Captain Ike stayed with her, as they had been allies from the beginning and knew the most about what was happening. Maura and Ike decided to return to her memory space through the secret passage, but the deputy had tampered with it, causing the passage to disappear. Maura thought for a moment and then led Captain Ike to Daniel's room. They found the secret passage and successfully arrived in Daniel's memory space. Maura knew from Daniel that all memory spaces were connected. She pried open a door panel and removed the ship's metal skin, revealing a passage filled with wires. They exchanged glances and entered without hesitation. Their journey was like Daniel's earlier one, taking them through different memory spaces and eventually leading back to Maura's memory space. They were getting closer to uncovering the truth behind the simulation program. Meanwhile, Daniel went to the ship's control center and typed frantically on the keyboard. A more advanced device extended from the control box, likely the core of the simulation. Daniel connected it to the keyboard and began complex operations. At the same time, the ship's internal programs began their final cleanup. Jerome, the priest, and other survivors had planned to escape by lifeboat, but lethal black crystals filled the corridors, trapping them. At the last moment, a bulkhead opened, revealing a passage to the memory space. They rushed through, and the scenery around them changed. Daniel had hacked into the main program to create this safe path. In the memory spaces, they were safe from the black crystals, Soon, everyone found exits from their memory spaces and returned to the ship's cabins. By then, the black crystals had vanished, as Daniel had completed the modifications to the program. Relieved, he crawled into a secret passage in the dining hall. Mora's father, watching everything through surveillance, became serious and took the little boy to study. He told the boy he wasn't the mastermind, but a victim, just like everyone else. He revealed that Mora had created the simulation program, and only she could save them all. The boy didn't believe him, so Mora's father decided to restore the boy's memories. They went to room 1011 in the mental hospital, where the boy was strapped to a restraint chair. Mora's father injected him with a white liquid to bring back his memories. The boy's vision blurred, and he saw a scene from many years ago. He remembered being diagnosed with a terminal illness, and Mora, unwilling to lose him, had erased his memories with a black liquid. She created the simulation so he could live forever. The only way to end the simulation was with the key Mora had left. Mora's father then ordered the deputy to retrieve the key from her. The deputy nodded and left just as Mora arrived. He threatened Mora, using the boy's safety, forcing her to hand over the key. After getting the key, the deputy pressed a button to remove Captain Ike from the scene. Mora was taken to her father's room, where they finally faced each other. Seeing the boy's disappointed eyes, Mora suspected her father had altered his memories, but her father refused to explain and ordered his men to strap Mora to the chair. He rebuked her for creating the simulation out of selfishness, making everyone suffer along with her. Mora's father was about to leave, but intended to trap her forever. He had the boy bring the memory-erasing liquid and injected it into Mora without hesitation. Then, he took the key he had just acquired and inserted it into the pyramid slot, thinking it would clear the simulation. But when nothing happened, he realized Daniel had changed the main program. Meanwhile, the ship's metal hull began breaking apart, glowing red. The survivors watched in silence as the ship disintegrated into virtual data. Mora opened her eyes and found herself in a memory space. She followed a guiding light to a hidden room where Daniel appeared and was excited. He told her he had succeeded. The simulation hadn't restarted, and her memories were still intact. Daniel's hacking had changed the simulation. This was the original simulation space Mora had created for her son. The pyramid her father had was now useless, and the yellow triangle Daniel took was the device to destroy the simulation. The key was now changed to Mora's wedding ring. He explained further that her brother took control of the whole program when Mora was in the simulating process. His father was also trapped here by the program. His brother did not want Mora out of the cycle, so they needed to leave before her brother found the code change and pleaded for her to wake up. She must stop him, otherwise all would disappear. Then the scene shifted. Mara woke up in a sealed metal space, surrounded by others from Kerberos. Looking out the window, she realized she was inside a spaceship, unaware that the spacecraft was also named Prometheus. Suddenly, a notification sound came from the monitor. The message showed they were in another Prometheus project for a survival mission in 2099. Then, a message from her brother appeared on the control panel. "Hello, sister. Welcome to reality." However, who knew this was another simulation or the real world? This can only be disclosed in the next season. This concludes the full content of Season 1 of 1899. Thanks for watching our recap. If you enjoy this video, please like and subscribe to keep up with our exciting movie journeys. See you next time.